We're fighting for wage rates to be raised, wage rates to be paid. Government of India says that 135 rupees a day for a wage worker with a family of 5 in Rajasthan is too much. And it also says, the Planning Commission says that rupees 32 a day is good enough for an urban person, and rupees 25 is good enough for a rural person to eat what they need. So that's all they need to earn. There's this huge controversy. Today I read that Montek Singh Ahluwalia has said that the 32 rupee thing will be removed and it will be much more universal and there will be no question of any limits prescribed. These are battles we're still fighting. You have to fight these battles. Even after I die, you'll be fighting these battles. Why somebody needs 10 lakhs of rupees in a month to survive? And why somebody can't get 135 rupees a day to survive? What is this inequality? Behind all this is the mystery of money, the mystery of budgets, the mystery of allocations, the mystery of expenditure, the mystery of corruption. So people said, we must see what is inside. So once when we were asking for minimum wages and we asked for an inquiry, the sub-divisional magistrate of this town we lived in, called Bheem, was having a hearing in which Nikhil Shankar and many of us were there. He took out the papers and he was reading, and we found on his paper that there was an institution called Bhairunath and Sons. I said, Bhairunath and Sons? Bheem is a very, very small place. There's only one high street. You can know the whole of Bheem in 10 minutes. You walk up and down and you know Bheem. I said, where is this Bhairunath and Sons? And it had supplied 40 lakhs worth of material. Cement, stone, this and that. So we said we need an inquiry. In the inquiry it was established that this was a fictitious company. And this fictitious company was making money. And who were the owners of this company, or the creators of this company? The BDO, the accountant from the BDO's office, a wife of one of the office officials, and the assistant engineer. They got together and made this company. Whenever they felt that money had to be earned, there were false muster rolls. And on paper, cement was supplied, paper, bricks were supplied, paper, everything was supplied, and it was profit. So we asked for an inquiry, and finally we established the need for transparency through many of these battles. That's why Kalpana talked about the process, because you have to establish in the public domain the need for a certain thing. So that drew people in large numbers to this, and it became actually a movement where people understood that transparency was directly linked to food, to shelter, to clothing. Sushila, a young friend of mine, no longer young now, she's a mother-in-law, went with me to Delhi. Like all of us to Delhi when we had, in 1996, a big press conference with Justice P.V. Sawant, with V.P. Singh, with many other political leaders, with Prabhat Joshi, Ajit Bhattacharya, so many of the press. We were trying to establish that we needed a right to information law, and Justice Sawant had drafted the first version of the law at the press council. Sushila was also there. And one press asked her, why are you here? Such an academic issue. What do you know about right to information? Should be asking for kapda, roti, makan. What are you doing asking for right to information? And look at the answer she gave them, became Asli. She said, all of you understand Hindi? She said, मैं अपने बेटे को दुकान भेजती हूँ, बाजार भेजती हूँ. वो वापस लौट के आता है तो उससे मैं हिसाब लेती हूँ. 10 रुपए देती हूँ तो उसका हिसाब लेती हूँ. ये सरकार हमारे नाम पे अरबों खरबों रुपए खर्च करता है. हिसाब नहीं लूंगी क्या? हमारा पैसा, हमारा हिसाब. It became a definition of the RTI movement. Should we say it? Will you say it with me? हमारा पैसा. You say हमारा हिसाब. हमारा पैसा. हमारा पैसा. That's it. She defined RTI in 4 words. So this is the strength, the mind, the intelligence, the political perception, the strength of rural people. So once that was done, it was easy for us. Then we had many other slogans: the right to know, the right to live. हम जानेंगे, हम जिएंगे. ये पैसे हमारे आपके, नहीं किसी के बाप के. ये सरकार हमारे आपका, नहीं किसी के बाप का. पंचायत हमारे आपका, नहीं किसी के बाप का. All these democratic institutions are our institutions. You're asking me about democracy. How does it strengthen democracy? Why should the panchayat, or why should the government be not with us. In a sense, the RTI redefined the relationship between people and the state. Till then we kept saying the state isn't ours, the government is not ours because the BJP has won or the Congress has won or the Shiv Sena has won or whoever has won, they're not, we didn't vote for them. तो सरकार हमारी नहीं। अरे जो भी बैठता हुआ हमारा है, चलाना पड़ेगा ना सरकार हमारे लिए। जो भी बैठे हमारा है, we said कुछ कैसे भी जीता हो, even if I have not cast you the vote, you jolly well do my work because you're sitting in a seat of office. So you will have to answer. I may not vote you to power, I accept your ideology. But where regular routine work is concerned, you have to do it. So we have to use RTI to make it function, we understood. If you just go and put in a petition, nobody answers your question. So we felt that it was extremely important to have this goal. This is how I feel RTI now being used in multiple ways all over the country. The Brai people who are fighting against these seeds being genetically modified, have used RTI. People who fought against the Gujarat genocide have used RTI. You have human rights cases which have been built with RTI. Much of the cases in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh against all kinds of state oppression have been done with RTI. You have small things like PDS, medicines, all get through RTI. So RTI is like the water. It's a constitutional right. It takes shape depending on the vessel you put it in. So if you want something about the fisheries department, it goes there. If you want something about women's rights, it goes there. If you want something about poverty issues, you want to know how much money has gone to a district, it goes there. So RTI is therefore what we call a transformatory right. It's a right which helps you transform other laws into reality. And that's how, and that's why it's become such a universally accepted law. I remember once, one chap from Chandigarh saying, when they were trying to amend the law, कि इतने साल बाद तो एक कानून बना है जो हमारे हित के हैं, तो हम इसको बदलने थोड़ा ना देंगे. We didn't know who he was. The law is owned. I went to Shillong. I went to Meghalaya. Nikhil was also acting with me. Thousands of women use it there. Thousands, because women are stronger in Meghalaya than men are. It's a matrilineal society. They use the law. They don't know who got the law. They don't know. They don't care about Ramon Magsaysay awards or names or anything. For them, it's a tool to get their right. Fighting against male oppression, fighting against corruption, fighting against NREG not being worked properly, fighting for the BPL allocation, fighting for Indira Awas Yojana houses and the works. Today there is a newspaper report that our speaker has been asked to pay some crores of rupees as arrears for house rent. This has been unearthed through RTI. There's a person in Delhi called Subhash Agrawal who has applied for information, got it, and now is putting a case against her for occupying a house and not paying rent. Variety is unlimited, so the RTI becomes a tool if you want to use it. All these people who worked in this were not activists, they are not political people, they were not government officers. All that they saw was that something was wrong in the system that they were interfaced with and it needed to be remedied. The only way all of us can do something is do it. Most of us don't do anything. I remember the first rally I took part in, many years ago, I can't remember when, just soon after I left the IAS, I felt everyone was looking at me. You know, when I went to the rally in Delhi, I thought everyone's looking at me. No one looks at you. No one. Of course, now you all know that no one looks at anybody. It's just a mass of people. And I have a loud voice. So I was always singled out for shouting the slogans. So I had to shout the slogans. And I thought, God, I wonder who's there looking at me. Then I told myself, you're a stupid middle class woman. No one's looking at you. There's nothing else for people to do but look at me. There are massive people protesting, they look at the massive people going. So the inhibitions that we have against speaking out are varied. I think we'll have to get rid of it. Some of us write, Kalpana has written, I don't accept her modesty. She has written and she's changed. Sainath sitting there, he's done so much to change.